In the news lately, there's a story that's been getting a lot of play about this so-called popular or prominent or noted atheist blogger who decided to convert to Catholicism. And she didn't convert to Christianity in general. She converted specifically to Catholicism. And her argument for why she did that, if you listen to her on the news, is that she's always had this idea that there is a objective morality, and that because there is objective morality, those morals must come from somewhere. And this caused her to renounce atheism and embrace a belief system which suggests to her where that objective morality comes from. And I can understand that until you actually analyze the idea of objective morality and what it means. Obviously, most morality is subjective. Even in the Bible, which is the source of Catholic doctrine, the morality is fairly subjective. The idea of the Ten Commandments even talks about things like "Thou shalt not covet," but it doesn't say what coveting specifically means, because there are certainly if you don't covet, you're not at some level you're not going to advance in life at any sense. So what does that mean? Thou shalt not commit adultery can mean if you're married, don't cheat. It can also mean don't cheat with people who are married. It can also mean don't talk on the internet to other women. Is that adultery? To different people it is. To other people that's no big deal. Flirting outside of marriage, who cares? To some people that's adultery. So what we end up with is this idea of subjective morality being the norm in most cases. But there are certain things that we as a society seem to find innately true in all people. Thou shalt not kill, is thou shalt not, and thou shalt not steal, seem to be objectively moral ideas. But if you've ever read Les Miserables, Jean Valjean can pretty much justify stealing bread. So there are cases where stealing isn't stealing. If we ever have the zombie apocalypse and I have to break into somebody's house to get gasoline for my car so I can escape the zombies, I'm not going to consider that sinful. I'm not going to consider it immoral. Whatever you determine morals to be, they're always subjective in a sense. You'll hear the argument, is killing babies not objectively morally wrong? And then you'll hear the qualifier on it, because you might come up with an argument for where you can justify it, and then they'll say, but what about enjoying it? Is enjoying killing babies morally wrong? And you can find a qualifier for that. If I've always had this desire to cut a baby open to see what its beating heart looks like. I haven't, but let's say I have. And but I don't, because I know it's morally wrong. But somebody is holding a gun to my family's heads, and they say, we're going to kill every member of your family unless you slice open this baby that you've never met before and kill it. And I have always wanted to do this, so it's in some deep, dark recess of my mind, I'm enjoying doing it. Am I morally wrong? Can't I make the argument that it's not morally wrong in that circumstance to kill and enjoy killing a baby? So all morality is, when you get right down to it, subjective. So if there is no objective morality, then there is no objective moral lawgiver, and her whole argument for why she converted to Catholicism falls apart. And I really don't think you can not have looked at that question. Those issues are, as an atheist, if she was an atheist, She had to have looked at that question and those issues and seen them in that light and come to that decision. My son and I had a discussion about this yesterday, and he was making the argument that murder is morally wrong because we feel guilt when we do it. And here was my counter to that, and I think it applies very well. If the human mind has developed in such a way to be communal, there are going to be things that are repellent to it in order so that it can be communal. One of the things that's going to be repellent to your mind is murdering other people, especially people that you're close to. You actually do develop this in-group, out-group thing where, as savages, we have no problem killing people who are in our out-group or out of our in-group, but would feel revulsion at killing somebody who is within our in-group. Although there are times where that if they are murdering people within the group, you may feel less revulsion at killing them. And then I likened it to this. We also can take nourishment in things that we find repellent. If there are maggots swimming on my food, I could eat the food and be perfectly fine, but I'm repulsed by it. It nauseates me. It causes me mental stress to even think about eating food swimming in maggots. It's the same kind of thing that causes me to feel revulsion at the thought of killing somebody in my in-group. So there is a biological component to what we call morality that can have evolved independent of there having been a God, independent of there being a moral lawgiver. It's not as if those moral laws were determined by God, either by fiat or by design, and imposed within our brains so that we know it intrinsically. That doesn't have to be the explanation. And in fact, it's a silly explanation and should be rejected out of hand. So this whole idea that that's why she converted and that people are lauding this conversion as being somehow intellectually valid, I don't get it. And that's all I have to say about that. Thank you.